What if the most important warning of the year just flashed by, almost unnoticed? Imagine a single moment that could alter the destiny of millions, a warning delivered not with bombast, but with chilling clarity. Picture a world obsessed with headlines and sound bites, yet nearly missing the signal that could determine the fate of a continent. For months, the eyes of the world have been glued to press briefings and diplomatic spectacle, each new statement dissected and debated. But this time, behind the choreography of official positions, something different happened. Alexander Lukashenko, president of Belarus, a man infamous for his calculated ambiguity, set aside his trademark vagueness. He spoke with a directness rarely seen in international politics. No bluster, no winking threats. Just a stark, almost surgical offer for peace, delivered with the gravity of a surgeon announcing a final chance before a life-changing procedure. This was not a routine warning. It was a line in the sand, an ultimatum dressed as an opportunity. Lukashenko's message was not scripted for cameras or designed for applause. It was a transmission to those who know how quickly the window for negotiation can slam shut. If ignored, he warned, the next moves would happen without Ukraine's voice, or its seat at the table. This was not Moscow signaling weakness or desperation. It was, instead, a calculated final call before the rules change for good. Meanwhile, as the world's politicians debate endlessly and pundits speculate from their studios, NATO and Europe's militaries have shifted from rhetoric to readiness. Troops are mobilizing along the borders of the Baltics, fighter jets roar through the skies, and military exercises have grown in scale and urgency. These are no longer the routine drills of peacetime. They are rehearsals for a crisis that everyone claims to fear, yet quietly prepares to confront. Consider what these maneuvers mean on the ground. In Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, residents have become accustomed to the sound of fighter jets streaking overhead at dawn. In northeastern Poland, villages near the Suwałki Gap, a narrow land corridor connecting Poland and Lithuania, buzz with the movement of armored columns. Local news reports describe farmers watching, uneasy, as tanks churn up their fields during NATO maneuvers. In Sweden and Finland, recently joined to NATO, civil defense pamphlets are being distributed, reminding citizens where to find bomb shelters and how to stockpile essentials. If the world dismisses this as just another round of empty threats, the consequences could be irreversible. Security, sovereignty, and the lives of millions hang in the balance and could be reshaped without the voices of those most directly affected. The risk is not only in tomorrow's headlines, it is the loss of agency itself, a nation's right to shape its own destiny. Let us pull back the curtain and decode what was truly said, and what is truly at stake. The next act in this high-stakes drama is beginning, and the cost of missing this cue could be nothing less than historic. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we need to examine exactly what Lukashenko revealed, and why it matters now more than ever. The timeline for diplomacy is shrinking. Every day, every hour, every decision counts. Diplomacy often speaks in riddles, trading in metaphors and unspoken signals. But sometimes, a warning comes stripped of ambiguity, unmistakable, urgent. History is full of such moments. The telegrams before World War I, the secret notes before the invasion of Czechoslovakia, the last phone calls before the collapse of Yugoslavia. Those who ignored the signals paid a terrible price. For nearly a decade, the world has watched as the Ukrainian crisis spiraled through endless cycles of failed talks. The Minsk agreements, first in the year 2014, then in the year 2015, were hailed as breakthroughs, but quickly became symbols of stalemate. The Istanbul negotiations in the year 2022 were dismissed as wishful thinking. Even Russia's proposal in the year 2023, which offered terms that some now see as generous in hindsight, was rejected out of hand. Each time, the hope for dialogue slipped further away, and with every setback, the ground hardened for the next confrontation. In Kyiv, the very idea of negotiation has become radioactive. Any peace overture is branded as capitulation, seen not as a pragmatic step, but as an unforgivable weakness, perhaps even treasonous. For Ukraine's leaders, to bargain is to gamble with everything, perhaps even more than the cost of continued war. So, one opportunity after another has been refused, as if denial might buy time or at least save face before the watching public and anxious allies. This dynamic is not unique to Ukraine. History is replete with examples of nations refusing to talk until it is too late. In the 1930s, Czechoslovakia's leaders hesitated to accept mediation, fearing accusations of weakness. In the 1990s, Bosnia's leaders rejected early peace proposals, only to face even harsher terms later. The lesson is always the same. The longer you wait, the fewer options remain. Now, the tone has changed. Lukashenko's latest address was not a performance. It was a warning. Gone were the polite euphemisms and strategic vagueness. He delivered an ultimatum, Moscow's terms, bare and unmistakable. Accept the offer, or be sidelined as others decide your future. For the first time, the speech invoked Washington, mentioning Donald Trump and alluding to back-channel deals stretching as far as Alaska. The message was clear. Larger forces are in motion, and soon, the real negotiations may take place above Ukraine's head, without its participation. This is not the plea of a desperate adversary. The Kremlin extends its hand not out of hope, but calculation. The subtext is chilling. Refuse once more, and talks will end. What comes next will not be words, but new borders drawn without consent. Those counting on another delay are running out of time. Each missed overture brings closer a future where sovereignty and security are decided without Ukraine's voice. The stakes have never been higher. The fate of a nation, the stability of Europe, even the credibility of negotiation itself. Yet even as leaders trade warnings in public, a darker stage is being set. Troop movements ripple quietly through the Baltic states and beyond, hinting that the next confrontation may erupt somewhere new, and soon. To grasp the gravity, consider that in the year 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was the quiet, unseen movements of Soviet ships and American destroyers that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Today, military satellites track every movement, but the risk of miscalculation remains as high as ever. The window for peaceful settlement is closing fast, and the world's attention is shifting to signs of escalation in the north. As military maneuvers intensify, the specter of a broader conflict looms over Europe. While politicians trade statements and argue behind closed doors, the world's strongest militaries are already rehearsing for disaster. Away from the cameras, NATO, France, and the United States are shifting from words to action, deploying forces by land, air, sea, and even in the realm of nuclear weapons. The era of predictable drills has ended. These are not routine exercises. What unfolds now are massive, coordinated rehearsals for escalation, on a scale not witnessed since the darkest days of the Cold War. Consider Operation Neptune Strike, a NATO exercise involving not just one or two warships, but entire carrier strike groups, strategic bombers, and amphibious assault forces. In one scenario, mock landings are practiced on the shores of Estonia, simulating the rapid deployment of thousands of troops. In another, French nuclear submarines surface in the Norwegian Sea, their presence a silent reminder of Europe's nuclear capabilities. During Poker 25 de Festry, French Air Force nuclear squadrons practice the protocols for authorizing a nuclear strike, moving from simulated alerts to real readiness levels. What does this mean for ordinary Europeans? For airline pilots, it means sudden rerouting of flights to avoid danger zones declared over the North Sea and Baltic coast. For fishermen in Denmark, it means days when they cannot take their boats out, as naval exercises close off entire swathes of ocean. In Germany, civil defense sirens are tested for the first time in decades, and in Finland, volunteers practice setting up emergency shelters in school basements. These exercises are not just for show. They are vivid reminders that the continent is bracing for scenarios that once seemed unthinkable. The echoes of the Cold War are impossible to ignore. American B-52 bombers sweep low over European cities. Submarine command centers lurk silently beneath the waves, and fleets of transport aircraft drill for rapid battalion deployments across borders. European governments, including France and Germany, are making preparations and issuing statements that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Defense budgets are swelling. Mobilization plans, long dormant since the end of the 20th century, are being dusted off and rewritten for a new era. The risk could hardly be higher. Each exercise, every fighter scramble, every naval patrol increases the chance of a miscalculation, an accident, a panicked overreaction, or even a deliberate provocation. With so many forces on edge, Europe could stumble into conflict before leaders even agree on their message. Recall the events of July 1914, when a single gunshot in Sarajevo set off a chain reaction that led to World War I. Today, with even more powerful weapons at play, the stakes are exponentially greater. Why these signals, and why now? What is happening beneath the surface, beneath a veneer of politics that grows thinner with every new maneuver? Lukashenko's warning about a last chance for peace is not just rhetoric. It lands in a Europe holding its breath as the machinery of war grinds to life. Just as in August 1939, when last-minute diplomatic telegrams failed to stop the blitzkrieg, today's warnings may go unheeded until it is too late. History rarely offers mercy. Every failed negotiation hardens the next one's terms. Each new proposal from Moscow grows colder and more rigid, shifting from dialogue to a series of ultimatums. Where compromise once glimmered, now only unavoidable dictates remain. The Kremlin's skepticism is no longer veiled. For Moscow, Kyiv has become an unreliable player, one who wastes every opening, who sees each negotiation as a trap. Real conversations are migrating elsewhere, to Washington, to Berlin, to those whom Russia believes still hold real influence over outcomes. Donald Trump's shadow stretches across this chessboard. He is not seated at the table, yet in both Moscow and Minsk, some see him as a potential bridge, an informal channel to cut through deadlock. But this window narrows daily. No promise from him can be counted on. No deal remains certain for long. Previous American leaders have tried similar gambits. Think of Richard Nixon's opening to China in the 1970s, or the Reykjavik summit between Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in 1986. These breakthroughs were possible only because the parties recognized the urgency and the closing window. Europe's signals are no longer only rhetoric. French leaders openly discuss nuclear contingencies. NATO's drills in the Baltics have lost their ceremonial air. They are urgent rehearsals for scenarios once unthinkable. Military budgets swell, mobilization drills accelerate. These are not bluffs. They are warnings, and each draws a new red line across the map of Europe. Here lies the true danger. Ignore today's warnings, and Ukraine may soon find itself excluded from the next round of talks. Decisions about borders and sovereignty could be hammered out in distant capitals, while Ukrainians are left voiceless. The price of denial is no longer theoretical. It is the possible unraveling of a nation, the erasure of agency for millions. Never has the line between war and peace felt so paper-thin. Recognizing these warnings, acting before they become irreversible, may be the last chance left. There may never be another opening like this. As the clock runs down, the players confront a grim calculus. Act now, or risk being written out of history. The next move could determine not only Ukraine's fate, but the entire future of Europe. In this theater of shadows, survival belongs to those who can read the script before the final curtain falls. Diplomatic ultimatums are not encores. When a power broker like Lukashenko issues a warning with surgical precision, it is not a rehearsal. Miss your cue, and the consequences are irreversible, because in statecraft, the next act does not always offer a way back. History is littered with missed signals and ignored warnings. The story of Ukraine is a chain of lost opportunities. Proposals dismissed, negotiations postponed, and overtures waved off as bluffs. Now, as this crisis tightens, the chance for another try is shrinking. Once a diplomatic window shuts, it rarely reopens. Think back to the year 1938, when Czechoslovakia was excluded from the Munich negotiations. The results were disastrous, as borders were redrawn without its consent. Or recall the fate of Poland in 1939, its sovereignty decided in Moscow and Berlin without a single Polish voice at the table. Healthy skepticism is your shield, but outright denial is a trap. Signals are sent for those willing to perceive them. Lukashenko's message was not simply theater, it was a direct transmission to anyone trained to read between the lines. When even seasoned diplomats begin to pack their bags, it is not performance, it is alarm. Misinformation can be as destructive as missiles. In moments like these, denial and propaganda become weapons, shaping perception and delaying response. You do not need to be on the front lines to feel the blast. Inertia and ignorance can redraw borders as surely as tanks. This is why civic engagement now matters more than ever. Paying attention, demanding transparency, and above all, voting are not just rights, but urgent responsibilities. Your awareness is the thin barrier between influence and irrelevance. When the stakes are national sovereignty and the safety of millions, silence becomes a dangerous choice. What can individuals do in such a moment? History offers practical steps. In Finland during the 1930s, ordinary citizens participated in civil defense drills, learning first aid and how to organize local shelters. In West Germany during the Cold War, school children were taught to recognize warning sirens and practice evacuation routes. Today, being informed, participating in community discussions, and holding leaders accountable are real forms of influence. Map changes, regime collapses. These are not abstractions. They are the real-world consequences for those who fail to act before it is too late. Each missed warning is another nail sealing the coffin of agency, for individuals and entire nations alike. Failing to see the stakes today may leave you powerless tomorrow. The final act is not yet written, but only the vigilant will have a say in how it ends. What happens next is not inevitable, but it is quickly slipping beyond the reach of those who wait too long. As the stage resets, new choices emerge, and so do new risks. The final offer is on the table. Will you see it before the borders move? History does not wait for regret. This was not Lukashenko bluffing, nor another round of empty threats. His words carried a single chilling ultimatum. Take this last chance for peace, or the conversation ends, and maps are redrawn without Ukraine's voice. This is not noise or rumor. Moscow, speaking through Lukashenko, is methodical and cold. The offer is real, and it is not coming from weakness. It is a final invitation, one made from a position of undeniable strength. Meanwhile, NATO's maneuvers in the Baltic and France's hints of nuclear readiness reveal a continent bracing for the unthinkable. As leaders pose and media distracts, the future is being shaped now, in quiet meetings and military drills. Ignore this warning, and Ukraine may soon find itself a bystander to its own fate. The diplomatic window is closing fast. Every past rejection, Minsk, Istanbul, last year's proposals, has only made the terms colder, each new offer sharper and more final. In Kyiv, denial is a comfort, but it cannot last. The world's power brokers are moving on. Washington is already in back-channel talks, even as public arguments rage. Europe's urgent preparations speak more clearly than any speech. Right now, public awareness is crucial. If citizens look away, if they choose distraction over hard truths, history will be rewritten by force, not by principle. Leaders and media must answer for the choices they make, and for the risks they take with millions of lives. Negotiation is still possible, but time is nearly gone. With every delay, the chance for peace shrinks, replaced by the certainty of imposed outcomes. The question is not just what will happen, but who will notice, and who will act, before the clock strikes midnight. For anyone who cares about sovereignty, security, and the true meaning of peace, this is the moment to pay attention. The curtain is falling. The decision is yours.